Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has sold more than 10 million units in 3 days on the market, according to Nintendo and the Pokemon Company, shattering multiple different records and absolutely obliterating what we all thought was even possible for an exclusive console release. Now, I felt 7 million plus in the first weekend or so was absolutely possible with this type of game, based off of my own sources and also the Amazon sales charts, the digital eShop sales charts. We were seeing that this game was trending upward very early. As soon as you were able to pre-order this baby, it started shooting up every single chart, so I knew it was going to be a large release. Now, another crazy thing about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's launch, we've talked about how, okay, this is the biggest Nintendo launch when it comes to the first 3 days of all time with sales, but it's not just Nintendo itself. It's absolutely obliterating just sales records, period. Biggest console exclusive launch of all time. That means if you take Halo, you take God of War, you take all these different games that have came out over the years of console exclusive launches, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in the first 3 days outsold all of them, has done better than any one of them, which is very, very impressive. Biggest Nintendo launch of all time, biggest Switch launch ever, biggest Pokemon launch ever. Across the board, it just absolutely obliterated the sales charts here and the records. But I think the bigger thing that people want to talk about here is exactly how did this game do it, considering all of the technical issues that are present in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And it's not just because people will buy anything when it comes to Pokemon. Obviously, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl didn't sell anywhere near as much in the first 3 days. Same goes for other Pokemon games in the past that have been on big Nintendo install bases, like the Nintendo DS, for example. So I think that there's a little bit more to this than actually meets the eye, and we're gonna break that down and so much more in this video. But before we do, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now, what we're first gonna start off with is the official press release from Nintendo on the matter, and here's what they had to say. Nintendo announced today that global sales of the Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet video games for the Nintendo Switch family of systems have surpassed 10 million combined units in its first 3 days since their worldwide launch on November 18th, 2022. This is the highest global sales level for any software on any Nintendo platform within the first 3 days. So it completely shattered the previous record. I'm not sure what game was the previous record, but it completely shattered that, whatever it was, since the fact that Nintendo came out and wanted to announce it now as of the 23rd/24th. So pretty incredible there. Now, Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet are the latest mainline games in the Pokemon series, releasing 3 years after Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield games, also for Nintendo Switch. In these newest titles, which welcome series newcomers and veterans alike, players experience a unique open-world Pokemon adventure for the first time in the franchise. Players embark on a new style of Pokemon journey, freely exploring at their own pace and tracking multiple main story paths in any order. Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet also expanded multiplayer modes, allowing for up to 4 players to travel across the land together. Along with the series staples, such as trading and battling Pokemon, players can also explore the various locations of the region together with other players. Whether trading, battling, joining the Terra Raid battles, or just having a relaxing picnic, players are sure to make some memorable experiences with their friends and family in local wireless or online multiplayer. Now, of course, if you guys want more information on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I've talked about it quite a bit. I have a bunch of stuff that I've talked about on the channel, so you guys can see all of that there. But I want to talk about this because there's going to be a number, not even going to be, there is a ton of people saying that Pokemon fans will buy anything. It doesn't matter the quality of the game. I can't believe this is happening. And you know what? There is some truth to all of that. The game is a technical mess at this point. Digital Foundry did a big review from the technical side of it. They stated the game was fun, but the technical side of it, there are all sorts of issues. In my own gameplay, I've seen, yeah, the frame rate isn't necessarily the best. You have some graphical issues. Obviously, the graphics aren't as good. There's some weird mountain warping when it's in dock, at least at this point. And I'm hoping that a patch comes to smooth out a number of these things. But now let me explain to you guys why this game is doing as good as it is doing. And that's because that this game, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, offer the closest thing to the Pokemon dream or journey that everyone's been wanting for a very long time. They've taken baby step after baby step after baby step with Pokemon Legends Arceus, also with Pokemon Sword and Shield, the wild area, and then a semi kind of open world, but not really. But this is the first time that we see in a new gen Pokemon game where they actually go fully open world and explore at your own pace. There is less structure when it comes down to the game, and it allows you to play the way that you want to play. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people are willing to look past some of those other things when it comes to the technical issues of the game and still pick it up. I'd also say this, there's no other company out there from a AAA standpoint that is offering anything comparable to what Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are offering. Is there any other game that you can think of that has the separate campaigns, that has the amount of Pokemon, that has the multiplayer features, that has everything that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet does? It's definitely not Temtem, it's not Monster Hunter Stories, it's not Digimon Stories, Cyber Sleuth, or Digimon New World Order, or any of these other things that have came out. So there's not any other companies, whether it be an Activision or whether it be a Take-Two or any of these companies that have billions of dollars or a ton of money, they're not offered anything like that. So Pokemon essentially has a vice grip on the monster battling genre from a bigger standpoint, right? Nobody else is really making anything that in-depth. And the last Digimon game that we got when it comes to big game was a visual novel slash strategy RPG. So it's not like Bandai Namco wants to compete regularly in that realm. And while Monster Hunter Stories 2 is a great Pokemon style type of game, it falls short when it comes to the competitive aspect and the monsters that are in the game. It just doesn't have enough at this point, and it's just not conducive of what Pokemon does from an online multiplayer standpoint with the trading and battling and all of that. It's just not quite there at this point. Still a very good game though. So I think that's the reason why Pokemon Scarlet and Violet still did as good as it has, because it's just one of those things to where there's not really anything else, and the game itself is also really good. Like the actual gameplay, this is the funnest time that I've had with a new gen Pokemon game since the DS days. Since probably Black and White, Diamond and Pearl, I haven't had as much fun with the new gen Pokemon game as much as this. So I think that's also part of it too. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not giving free passes here for technical issues, because if the technical issues were sorted out, we were talking about this on the Spawncast recently, if they actually had technical issues sorted out, this game would have been rated at least 10 points higher than where it's at. And I absolutely agree. I don't disagree with the initial 78 that it got and then the 76 that it's at right now at this point. Heck, it might drop even lower after more people review the game because more reviews are still coming in. I don't necessarily disagree with that because the technical issues are there and it's a problem and we need a patch as soon as possible, or we need a complete redoing when it comes to some of the technical aspects of the game because they can do better. And I'm going to make sure that I keep saying that in any time that I talk about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because I think we can all agree upon that for the most part. Now, I haven't ran into all of these crazy bugs and glitches that other people are running into online and showing off and making it seem as if that's representative of the full product. But at the same time, there's still issues, be it that. There's still a lot of issues. And once again, the frame rate absolutely needs to be patched up. But I still feel even with all of that, it shows how strong the actual core mechanics of the game are when it comes to catching, battling, having Pokemon in the open world, the 3 separate campaigns, the multiplayer features, the trading, the hub. Everything is snappier, faster, and better than ever when it comes to the auxiliary stuff surrounding Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And I think that's the reason why a lot of fans responded in that way. And I feel that a lot of fans knew that the game had technical issues heading into it. And the reviews were right there. They were right there for you to see beforehand. And it was publicized a lot. It was all over the internet. It was all over the place. Now, don't get me wrong, there's probably some parents that went out there, probably a lot that went out there and just bought the game. But I think that a lot of kids that get the game for Christmas or whenever they're going to get it, I think they're still going to be like, all right, I'm just going to play the game. Because that's what a lot of people are doing. They're just like, all right, there's some issues. It's not really good here, which I'm in that boat. It's not really good here when it comes to the tech stuff. The graphics are not necessarily great, but the game is still fun as heck. And there's not really anything else in the market like it that can compete with it. So there's not an alternative. And on top of that, they have some really cool, fun things in the game that actually make it to be more fun than a lot of the games that have been released since more than a decade ago. Like I said, Diamond and Pearl came out back in like 2007 or something like that, and Black and White came out a little bit after that. The fact that I haven't had as much fun with the new gen Pokemon game since then is very telling on what they've done since then when it comes to Pokemon. Because Pokemon used to be my favorite franchise out there from Nintendo. Used to be my absolute favorite. I played it all the time in Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, especially Gen 1 and Gen 2. Those were like my favorites. And I was always a huge fan of it when it comes to the competitive aspect and also just the game itself. But it kind of fell off for me after a while. It kind of fell off for me, but I think that this style in terms of what they're doing is the way to go. And I talked about this in my last video where I said that this is the foundation of where they can build off of. They need to get this game patched up and get everything fixed up from there, but they can build off this foundation and make an even bigger and better Pokemon game in the next number of years. But they need to give Game Freak a bit more time. But goodness gracious, 10 million units. Now, I do want to get into another topic here, is that some people feel that because of these sales, now Game Freak won't do better or Game Freak won't fix the game. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. I know with Pokemon Sword and Shield, that had issues too when it comes down to it, but there were patches for that. I think Pokemon Legends Arceus had a few things here and there, but it was pretty solid because it was a smaller scale type of game. There was no multiplayer, there was less Pokemon. I mean, there was a number of things that they did in that game where they kind of focused on the single player experience and catching Pokemon over and over. But the Pokemon Company with their new gen Pokemon games usually release some updates and stuff. This would probably be the most work that they'd have to do on an update though. I will say that this would be a pretty big task for them to kind of get together with their testers and make sure everything is going properly, which I think that they still need to do. But I don't feel that just because a game sells really well means that the company won't fix it or they won't do some things to help out. I mean, look at Cyberpunk. That game launched in a really bad state and it sold really well even at the jump, and yet they still did things to patch the game up. I think that Nintendo's done this with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That game launched in not a terrible state, definitely not as bad as Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but they still patched that game as well. So I think that just because a game sells really well and there's issues doesn't mean that it won't get patched or won't be things to help out there, especially if fans keep on bringing it up. Because I think that yes, initial sales are great and you want that, but I feel that if you fix things down the line, you can get those sales later down the line. Imagine if Cyberpunk still had all the issues that it had at this point when it launched, and then they launched that new show, the Edge Runners show, and people were like, wait a minute, it still has all the same issues. It didn't get better from all this time. So I think that in the long term, that's where you want to make sure that things are a bit better so you don't run into that. If there's a new wave of people playing the game or buying it or whatever the case is, and based off these sales, I don't think it's going to slow down, you know, by the end of the year or early next year. I think people are still going to go out there and buy it. It's a polarizing type of game. There's a lot of controversy with it. So I feel that there is a lot of work to be done, but that's the reason why the game is doing so well, because the core game in terms of what you're getting is still really fun. And like I said, I haven't been as addicted to a Pokemon game like this in terms of a new gen Pokemon game, not like Legends Arceus or Pokken Tournament or something else like that. Even though Legends is a mainline game, I haven't been as addicted to a new gen Pokemon game in a decade plus. So I think that's the main reason why when it comes down to it, and effort was put into there. But I really hope that the Pokemon Company says, all right, we got a lot of work to do to kind of roll up their sleeves a little bit and get something going here, because these sales are incredible. You have a huge base that's all playing your game and maybe saying, well, wait a minute, this aspect is busted or this isn't so good. I mean, that's a double-edged sword at this point, right? A lot more complaints could come in. So I do feel that it is time to make sure that they say, hey, okay, let's get this patch out within the next week or so, and then maybe even a bigger patch in December or January to fix things up even more, because we're going to be playing this game for a long time. I know I'm going to be playing this game for hundreds of hours. There's just so much to do, so much to see. The multiplayer, the Terra Raid battles, there's just so much great stuff. And I think that this will finally be the Pokemon game that I actually get back into it competitively a bit online, because it's so easy to raise your Pokemon and change up things. I mean, the quality of life options in this game are immense. So much better than what it was on the DS days or the 3DS days, or even Pokemon Sword and Shield to a degree. So very happy about what they're doing with some of the aspects, but definitely want to see them use this momentum, use this to say, okay, we need to get some things done, which I think is absolutely possible based off of previous games Nintendo's launched that had some things here or there that sold really well. So what do you guys think about this when it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we'll see you for the next video. Peace.